Hi, my name's Christopher Powell. I'm an old fart, decided to go back to college after 26 years to finally fulfill my goal of having a bachelor's and learn to make games. This video will serve as an assessment of where I feel I am right now as far as different skills, and will show some of the assignments and classes that I took along the way to get here. And how they relate to the projects right here on my portfolio page. So we're going to start with the Beachcomber project here, which was from GAM-495, Design of Virtual Game Environments. This class introduced us to landscape tools. It introduced us to moving actors in a level to give it some life. Think platforms in a platformer game, or even things in the background rotating around, providing some ambiance. It introduced us to sound attenuation. It gets quieter as it gets further away and louder as it gets close. It introduced us to spawning an actor and then despawning it, and also to timelines. So the animation moving back and forth can also be used to, say, pop an actor out of the ground. So one of the things that they had us do was all of our projects were in a tutorial project here in Unreal. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and then we'll compare it to the final project and how I applied the concepts that we learned in this class over the weeks that we were in it. So this also was my first experience with source control, and for this one I used Bitbucket as my repository. I still have a Bitbucket account. I still use it sometimes, but I'm trying to learn Git and move everything over to GitHub. Boy oh boy, still quite a learning curve on that. So here's the project as we learned it. It's like this was a hover component. Let's full screen this. This took an actor and made it hover in the air, bouncing up and down. This launch pad, when you walked over it, it popped you up in the air. This proximity mine, when you got close to it, it would explode. I mean, these are all things that can help make a level, bring it to life. And this, we didn't open on this. We had this level. So let's pop into it so you can hear the sound. Right? It's directional. That's this little guy right here, and it pops. You run into it. I think it's E. Yep, you can fracture it, which is and then that one pops up out of the ground. We have the lights flashing every time we move underneath it, and then we have this sphere that is a physics object. You can have it push you. So these are the concepts they covered in the game, in the course at the beginning. And so how did we apply those? I made this. It's a top-down beach combing game. Basically, you have a metal detector and you're roaming the beach, listening to the beeps to see where the treasures are. And once you find one, it pops up a prompt and your character does a little digging animation, and up pops a treasure. You gain points for it. There's a variable number of points per treasure. It's not the same each time. I think I used a switch case statement, just to apply different levels. It just generates a random number and then gives you an amount based on that random number. For the class, for the portfolio, we polished it up a little bit. The original, see if I can find some screenshots. The original final just had these blocked out areas. It had the beach and nothing else. Like, it was very plain. Your character walked around, dug up these little gold balls on the beach, and then the time ran out. You got a score, and you could try again or quit. It was a very basic HUD, right? So we polished it up, changed the color of the beach. I added all of these umbrellas, which are a PNG that I just peeled these umbrellas out of images using Photoshop and pasted them all together. And then there's bounding boxes here so the character can't walk in those areas, so they effectively act as a barrier. I actually changed the mannequin to this little guy I got from Mixamo and gave him an animation blueprint and blend space so that he can walk around and dig. So very cool. And he can dig, and I also added a decal, so every time you dig it pops a decal. It looks like there's a hole in the ground, which I think was a good change, right? Very cool. Now, a very simple game. I don't have a video of this one. Let's go ahead and open it in Unreal so we can take a look at it. It's a 303 final. I'll go ahead and pop that open. I mean, it's several years ago. 4.22 was the current version back then. So let's see. Now listen. Boom. You can hear the dig, the beeps, and then it pops up. And there's the dig. So that's the basics of the game. I need to change the volume because, and I need to add a check so that they don't spawn so close together. And eventually I plan on adding the model of the metal detector and the shovel, and then add a particle so when he does that dig it just flings some sand up. And I'd also like to vary the items that pop out, one of them being a crab that bites him so he hops up and down and loses some time, and a watch that adds like 5 seconds to the clock. So it's a random 7 to 10 targets spawn on the beach, but they need to be spread out a little bit more. But that's how I applied the lessons from that class. They were very simple, very basic, but I combined them and made a fun little game out of them. Next on the list would be GAM-495, which was a graphics game engine. This is where we were exposed to the runtime mesh component, to where we stipulated in code the dimensions and the size and shape of a static mesh, applied a material to it, and then when the game ran, code spawned the item and then despawned it, destroyed it. This is something that actually is very resource conservation, right? We want to be able to do this as much as possible so we don't have a bunch of meshes clogging up, taking up space and memory and slowing down the game. So they're also using render targets to apply these decals to whatever happens to the paintball happens to hit. If you notice, they're all different colors. That's based on a random number that generates a color, and also the ball that shoots out of the gun. If you can see it, this one's blue, and when it hits, it'll make a blue splatter. That was not the easiest thing to do. It wasn't explained in the class. It was just like a stretch goal to get us to do it. So to take, and I also did I was experimenting with a procedural mesh. Like, let me see if I can find it here. This is the project. It's 4.24. Or I wanted to be able to generate a landscape from a procedural plane and then apply a height map to it. Right? So at runtime, you could load up a random height map with a adaptive material and create a landscape from scratch at runtime. Very stretch goalie because I had not done any work with C++ until this point. The professor Usabiaga, Jorge, very cool dude. Typically this class requires you to install version 4.18 of the engine. because the plugins and things that are used in the engine are very, very outdated. So let's see if I can find it. So this is our procedural plane. You can come down here, if I can find it. Yeah, so you place your height, your width, and your length here. You can make it 250 by 150. How many subdivisions per side? We'll make it 20. And spacing, we'll make it 15. And press play. Now you're on a small little panel that's been procedurally generated. If we change this to wireframe, if I can, boom, you can see that it generates all these vertices, and if you change these numbers, subdivisions 50, boom, it makes a huge, all these vertices will be used for a height map to generate a landscape at runtime. Pretty cool. I did not get the bump or the height maps to work because well, I couldn't. It was my first experience with this kind of thing, and this is some of the other stuff we were dealing with, you know, having procedural textures, procedural materials applied to objects, a one-sided plane right here. I thought the fog of war actor was in here somewhere too, which was pretty cool. It might be, actually. So we learned, see there, see it makes holes, and you can see through the material as it makes the holes. And this is our demonstration of the paint splatters, right? All these different colors. You can see that they're... So this is what we learned in this class, and I took all those lessons and made a shooting gallery. I imported these little models. I made this little plane for the rare. The gold cube that pops through is a runtime mesh component. And to show that particular skill, and then of course I have a video on the site showing. This is a short one. I'll go ahead and play it. This is Goating Gallery. It is a paintball shooting gallery with a goat, with a personality. This was an exercise in procedural mesh components, procedural materials, material instances, decals, and I decided to animate a goat and have him walking around in there because I think splattering a goat with a paintball is kind of funny. Henry doesn't seem to think so, though. So we have target dummy targets are 100 points. The golden cubes are procedural meshes. They're 500 points. Those are coded in C++. And these red diamonds are a random multiplier to however many points you have, and they're set to only spawn 15% of the time. And of course, there's Henry. So let's start the game. And there's Henry. If you shoot him, oh, wow, you saw a glitch. Sorry about that. I need to increase the size of his collision boxes. I didn't really have anything to multiply. See, now Henry, he can run. His max speed is 600, so he can move and get in the way. Hi, Henry. Pop him in the face. He gets upset. So that's the game. It's a quick, easy little game that, you know, was to demonstrate the concepts we learned in that class, and I just expanded it a little bit to make something kind of fun. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. You guys take care. Okay, so I expanded on the graphics game engine lessons by adding this mesh along with its animation blueprint, the blend space, imported some animations and made him play montages. He ran around. He has a variable speed, and he is he's an ornery little guy. I just thought this was a great idea. It's fun. I also experimented. It's the first time I've ever like limited the character's movement. Like you cannot move. All you can do is aim the gun and fire it, which makes it a nice, simple, easy game. And it's fun. It was a lot of fun to take something simple and make something that is fun to play. I think is very important for a game developer. Fun is the whole point of making a game. Just point blank. The next class I want to cover is GRA 311, which was environment design. For that, I decided to make a level. This is an area that's based on a real place in Michigan called Boone, Michigan. This is Lake Miwataka. My uncle's house is like right down the road over here. I just felt like it was a great place. It would make a good level for a shooter. This cemetery is actually where my uncle and my aunt and my cousin Norman are buried. This is a little country store. It's where we buy bait when we go fishing. But some of this stuff is it's quote unquote paraphrased. Like the shape is pretty good, but these houses, there's this road's like 5 or 6 miles long. So, but it's not for the game. It's a little shorter. The marshes are real. We actually hunted, gathered blueberries in all these areas. Anyway, I wanted to make this level as sort of a homage to my uncle when he passed away in January. So I did. Now the first version of this level, it was way, way, way too big. Like way too big. Way too big. I ended up had no time. I made some rudimentary buildings and put in it, and it was just bad. Just bad. We did have to create a couple of 3D items. Like I made this lake buoy, which is based off an actual photograph. Here's the material, the normal map, created the buoy, placed it in the game, works just fine. Here is my landscape, the first version of my landscape material. It gets more crazy from there. The second asset I made was a crate, a military crate. Here's our normals. I made it in Maya and then sculpted the wood in Mudbox. Let's see if I can find a screenshot of that bad boy. I don't think I can, but it's in the video. So this class was all about creating an environment using the landscape tools, atmospheric, fog, lighting, everything to create a mood in your level. So I went ahead and revised it, scaled it down so that the player didn't take 30 minutes to run from one side to another. And the idea with this map actually isn't to play the whole thing at once. So like it's an objective based game where a payload spawns somewhere on the map, and teams of 4 players and enemy AI are hunting for the payload, and once they get it, they have to get to an extraction point. There's only one payload, so and then the game announces when somebody picks it up. You have to get out with it. People are going to come find you, try to take it from you so they can win instead. But the whole point is like for one match, maybe it just spawns. This part of the map will be accessible. The rest of it all will be blocked off by hazards, right? Or the next one, it could just be this section of the map or this section of the map, so that as you play the game, when you play different matches, it's different each time, right? That's the whole idea for making it this large, and so you could have a variety in the same environment and get more out of it via different versions of the map that have different things spawn on them, which I'm sure would happen in the level blueprint at runtime. The different variables would cause different things to pop up, so to block things off, no problem. But it was way too big, even knowing I was only going to have players accessing certain parts of it. So we used the landscape tools of sculpting. We created our own landscape materials. See if I can find here's my second version of my landscape material. quite a bit more to it. I had 4 layers on this one. I think I ended up with 5 or 6 in the end, because I just needed all those textures. The grass and the wooded ground inside the forest areas, the marsh floor, the pond scum that went on the water planes for these, and then the lake water here. You don't see much of that in this because I concentrated on blocking out this area here with the base. This was the original drawing. I decided that instead of a building, this right here would be like a tall lookout tower like you'd see in national forests and park rangers and stuff like that. And it turned out so cool, I decided to place 4 of them in the levels. There's one here. I put one right here to guard this choke point because this is a path that leads here to the base, connects these 2 areas together. So this tower guards here. This one here is sort of isolated. This is not a path to it. This is all unpassable to players. They have to come through here and come up, and you can get choked off or trapped. Like say if the payload spawns here and you go after it, if enough players and enemies come at you, you're pretty much doomed. It's going to be a fight out of there. I placed one down here to guard this visual aisle right here, so you can demarsh and this path into the residential area, the neighborhood, and up into the base. I did a 4th one. What the heck did I do with it? Well, anyway, so there's the block out of the lookout tower. Let's see, these are just supposed to be stairs. It's to scale. It's nice and clean. This is a garage, like a multi-bay big truck type garage. This was just a floor plan. This is an upper walkway. There is an office right behind me, and right below that is a storeroom with a single entrance. There'll be a locked door or something like that. There's storage areas underneath this walkway, and the doors will be up and down or open. This is a man door. There's a man door over here, but this gives, once all the different props are in here, it'd be a nice place to have a foot battle with other players. This is a view from that isolated tower, seeing where this is the only way in or out. You can see forever down there to the other storage room, but if you get trapped here, that's that. Like, the flow of the level means you better get in and out quick or plan on fighting your way through. And then this is the one by the farm that guards the creek choke point, and then has visibility to the north to where the cemetery and the farm are. I thought that was a decent use of this space, and it exhibits a decent level design for a shooter. I have different lanes, not a lot of wide open spaces once the props and everything are in, so very tactical, like that you can go into the trees and sneak your way through, hide in the buildings, explore the buildings. There will be NPCs roaming around trying to find the payload just like you are. Once these residential areas are blocked out and everything is complete, I'll start play testing it with some friends, and we'll see what happens. But I think this is going to work out pretty well for this type of game, and I do explain everything I just went over in this video, and this one shows a flyby in the editor of all the areas, and it shows them all in and out. And then we have a playthrough where I go ahead and go in as the third person character and run through the level and show the player the scale and the pacing of this particular area. And I think it does a very good job of showing both use of visual assets, and there is no hit to performance. Like, this still runs 120 plus frames per second the entire time, even with all the foliage, because of LOD. And once streaming is enabled in it and we're only spawning what's in the visual range of the player, it'll be even better. So that's what I demonstrated, and I chose this project because actually it's part of something that I've been working on for a while. I have a game design doc in for this payload PvPvE team-based shooter, and I've been trying to double dip and use the projects that I've been working on in different classes for the last, 8 or 9 months to make assets for this game. Which brings us to GAM-380, experiential learning. For this one, just like I explained here, we got to choose whatever we wanted to do. Professor Joseph Whitworth, awesome guy. He let us do whatever we wanted. He had to approve it. So I decided that I needed some more experience with C++ because I had not used it very much up to this point, and it's graduation time. Like, the time is out. So I actually added this class and GRA 311 over and above my degree program and paid out of pocket because I wanted the experience from those classes, because I felt like I had missed out, as I used a lot of my electives to satisfy my minor in business. So for this class, I decided I need to bone up on my C++ skills, and what better, I need to learn AI, right, for the shooter. So making the NPCs do what we want to do, and there are going to be various factions. They're going to be against the players and each other. I needed to learn how all this stuff worked and how it was implemented in Unreal Engine. So I focused on the detection by team affiliation and the team ID system, so that you can have the different groups of AI respond to each other differently. Attack, friendly, run, that kind of thing. And also it gave me a chance to really stretch my legs and learn about C++ and its implementation in Unreal, and work on best practices for coding. Like, all the formatting here is very clean. My comments are very clean and concise. Everything is easily read. Nothing's crammed. I know it can be shortened even more, but I prefer the long way for all this stuff, honestly. There's a lot of stuff that you can just put all on one line, but I prefer it this way. It's easier for me to read. It's easier to go back if somebody else were to have to read it. And also, I had been using a lot of underscores in my variables, and actually I just noticed there's still one in here. I need to get rid of that. Again, get back to camel case. And actually at one point I ended up going back through and trying to replace every variable name, every function name with camel case, and obviously I missed a few. But again, I'm trying to learn coding best practice and really get some experience. So this is one of those things that could have all been one online. So you could have put the brackets up here and just had it on one line, but I think this is easier to read, even if it does take up a little more space. Also in this class, I found a great IDE called Writer, which had been around for a while for Unity, but they're finally stretching out and released it for Unreal Engine 4. And it is very well integrated via a plugin. It will auto-complete things. You can pull first right from the API. You just type something in. If you're missing the include, it'll automatically generate the include for you, where it comes from. It is a huge time saver. Like, if you're not using Writer for Unreal, you should be using Writer for Unreal. There's a few videos on YouTube about it, but between learning this new IDE and just getting more seat time with C++, I feel like this class was exceptionally valuable. Now, one thing I did start to pick up on as the course went on was that this could be something pretty special. So I started wondering why you had to have 15 different actors for, say, 3 factions and 5 unit types in each faction. So why couldn't I have one NPC actor, feed it some arguments for a spawn function, and then have it generate the AI controller, the behavior tree, the mesh, the name, everything? Just do the arguments, spawn NPC, and for the arguments you have faction ID and unit type. And then based on those items, it pulls from a struct, and it knows what behavior tree, it knows what AI controller for team A or B, C, whatever, and it just generates the NPC at runtime. You don't have to fool with it. Right now, what I have is it's all in here via U properties. Like, I can specify the team, I can specify the unit type, I can specify the behavior tree, the mesh, and the AI controller, all in here. I needed to get it working this way first. Like I can come in, switch the stuff around, press play, and it's a completely different NPC. It behaves completely different. It works. I'm stuck on automating it because the whole idea is like I want to be able to say the character stumbles into the base and they cross over an overlap. I want it to spawn a group of 5 enemies that come pouring out of a building and attack of different types, and I want to be able to just throw some random stuff at it, a couple of numbers out of an array, and have it generate 5 NPCs with their meshes and their behavior trees and their controllers and everything, and just have it work. I'm close. Like I spent a bunch of time trying to get that to work this term. I was actually using the NPC spawn system as one of my projects, but I couldn't get it to work. So I abandoned it as a separate project and just included it in this project because they really came from the same thing. And all of this serves to kind of use everything I've learned so far in all of different classes. So like I've created animation blueprints, blend spaces, animation montages so that the characters and the NPCs can perform actions, which couldn't do that before. So I think this project really shows exactly how far I came, because I just did this past spring. It was a term before this one, right, in March. I could not have dreamed of doing this 3.5 years ago when I first started school. There's no way. I'd never even touched C++. I never touched Unreal. I didn't know what any of this stuff was or did or anything else. It has been an amazing journey. I am so happy that I finally went back to school and did it. And I can't wait to get out there and make something. That's the whole idea. I'm going to produce this prototype. This shooter game is my passion project, and I really want to get it done. I'm concentrating on I'm going to use pre-baked assets and just make it work, and then go from there. I got a plan. Once I have something I can put on Kickstarter or start soliciting people to work for me or work with me on a team, that's the idea. I'm not interested in going to work for anybody else. The whole point of me doing this was so I didn't have to work for anybody else. I've been in retail for 25 years. I'm done. I want to work for myself. So there we are. There's the assessment where I'm at right now. I've come a long way, and I owe it all to you instructors and my fellow students here at SNHU. And I'm still touch base with a lot of them in several Discord channels that have been set up by different people. Great resources. Please get in them. It was an amazing experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. All right, so that just about wraps up this assessment of my road to where I am right now and where I feel I am and where I'm going from here. We'll continue to be blocking out this level and making the different materials and making, right now it's just all be block out, just in box brushes to get the flow right, get the feel right, and then once everything is where it should be and where it's going, then we'll start making real assets. And as far as this project goes, I'm going to continue trying to get the NPC spawn thing working. I'm just going to start with simple attributes for the NPCs, which right here, this one is when this doesn't actually show it at all, but right now the constructor for the NPC, it makes them each a different color based on their team ID. So if I can spawn and just specify the team ID in the editor as a U property and then have it spawn so many things, similar to how we did the procedural mesh, will be there. I can expand on it from there. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for everything this term. And hopefully you'll be playing my games here in a year or two. All right, take care.